finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
Well, I will stay good out here. It's a very surprising thing. Maybe there was a premonition this was coming. I saw an announcement by Facebook that they were appointing Dana White of the very macho, very Trump-friendly Ultimate Fighting UFC to the board. And I thought, gee, boy, he sure is trying to ingratiate himself with Trump. And I know he met with Trump and he made $1 million gift to the Trump inaugural. I thought, well, those are all symbols. What about the substance? Well, today we heard the substance. And who better to talk to about this than a man who has literally written the book about it? I'm talking about my friend Allum Bokhari. He used to be at Breitbart.com. That's where we first became buddies when he was their senior tech editor there. But now he's the managing director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. What a pleasure to be joined again by our friend Allum Bokhari. Allum, great to see you again. And thanks for joining us. I feel like these are momentous times for social media. I don't know if you heard Mike talk about black pill, white pill, but I'm feeling for the first time since 2017, I'm feeling hopeful about freedom of speech online. How about you?
I'm feeling very hopeful. And, I've been quietly white-pilled on Facebook for a while because even last year, I was hearing rumors inside the company, from inside the company, that there was a shift in direction or a planned shift in direction. I guess the company was waiting for the outcome of the election to really solidify that and take it to the next level. And wow, how have they've really done that? That statement from Mark Zuckerberg is really quite comprehensive. I wasn't expecting, even though I was optimistic, I wasn't really expecting Meta to go that far. It's a little bit of a bizarre feeling. It's a good feeling to hear, you hear the language before we even get to his policy changes, but you hear the language Mark Zuckerberg is using there. He's talking about the legacy media. He's talking about politically biased fact checkers. He's talking about the whole censorship pressure, the whole censorship ecosystem of the last 10 years, the last decade being driven by political bias. I mean, it's a bizarre yet good feeling to hear my own talking points, the talking points we've discussed here on this show for the last decade, repeated back to us by the CEO of Meta. It's great. It's positive. It feels like a massive victory. You still have to keep an eye on Meta to see how they implement this, how successful they are, how well executed it is. But the policy changes Zuckerberg announced are very, very clear and very, very significant. It touches on every single aspect of the censorship regime.
You're so right to point out the use of language that you just did, because embedded in that language is a bunch of assumptions that someone who was still dedicated to censorship would never say. And to say we're going to work with President Trump, that's something that a typical Silicon Valley Democrat could not force their mouth to make those words with a straight face. I also got a chuckle out of one of the things he was promising was to move the word regulation from California to Texas. I mean, that's a slap. I mean, there's no reason for that other than he's basically condemning California censorship culture and embracing Texas freedom culture. Like that to me stood out as a quirky thing, but everyone who would think about freedom would understand exactly what he means. Wasn't that a funny little wrinkle?
That was a funny little wrinkle, and I think there's actually a long history there because if you go all the way back to I think it was either 2017 or 2018, right when the censorship industrial complex was really in full steam and getting going, in the first ever appearance of Mark Zuckerberg before a congressional committee, I think it was a Senate committee, you can see him getting grilled by I think it was Ted Cruz on the left-wing biases of his employees. And Zuckerberg's response back then in 2018 was that, yes, Silicon Valley is a very left-leaning place. That's why so many Facebook employees vote for the Democrats and donate to the Democrats. So he recognized it back then, and that's sort of a culmination of that logic and that pressure that Meta and other Silicon Valley companies have always been under from Republicans and from the conservative media, that their employees lean to the left, that they're part of a very left-wing culture. They're based in possibly the most left-wing place in the United States, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I think him moving the trust and safety team to Facebook is a very big symbolic move, as well as like a real move, because if it means there are going to be more Texan employees, that will change things as well. It also means they'll be subject to the laws of Texas, rather than the laws of California. And another thing, I'm sure the trust and safety employees will be happy that they're much less likely to step on a heroin needle walking down the street than they would be in San Francisco.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are some left-wing places in Texas, as hard as that is to believe. Austin, for example, is a little bit lefty, but the Texan culture still is dramatically more freedom-oriented than California. It's interesting. I mean, I've been extremely critical of Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, I know you're the expert in this field. I think part of me thinks he's just trying to move with the times, as any wise, businessman would. He's even got a bit of a makeover. He's got that, new hairstyle. He's wearing a chain. He's sort of cool. And part of me wants to be skeptical because I don't want to be easily tricked. But I think you have to be open-minded to your opponents changing their point of view. You have to meet them. You have to at least start off thinking, okay, he's doing these things in good faith. And I mean, as they say, the test of the pudding is in the tasting. We'll see how it really goes. But he talked about some issues. He talked about gender. He didn't say transgenderism in sports and bathrooms, but that is a really hot frontline battle now. And that used to be one of the most censored issues. I remember on the old Twitter, if you misgendered someone, if you called a transgender person by their biological gender, you would be suspended. I don't know how they did it so quickly, but you would be suspended immediately if you dead named someone. So if you were to call Mark Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, or vice versa, that would get, so to give up that front line in the culture wars and immigration, I think part of it is getting with the times, but those are pretty key parts of the Democrat message bundle. That's quite an astonishing thing. That's very specific, isn't it? He's not going to crack down on transgender stuff anymore.
That is one of the things that struck me about Zuckerberg's statement and really impressed me, actually, was the level. It wasn't just a vague commitment to free speech. We're going to be more free speech friendly. It was very, very specific. He mentioned immigration, he mentioned gender, and he said specifically that they've been used as excuses. The speech controls around those topics have been used as excuses to shut down political debate. That's very specific, and a very specific commitment to get rid of those speech controls specifically. That is huge. And the way he discussed the technical implementation of it as well, he said that automated AI censorship would now only be reserved for, the most extreme illegal content, things like child exploitation and things like that. AI will be used for that, but it won't be used for the more minor rules around civility and hate speech. That have to be a report first. Yeah. And that is a really significant technical change that he specifically referred to as well, not just getting rid of the speech controls over immigration and gender debates, but also changing the way the technical enforcement of all the rules is implemented. And it's very, very positive. Like you said earlier at the start, very black-pilled about the idea of these AI censorship algorithms being used to monitor and censor speech automatically. Zuckerberg saying they'll only be reserved for the most illegal content, that's a huge move.